Hey folks, Tom Amoroso here. I can't believe we're on our fourth night already. It's Catherine Blanche here in the corner. She'll be joining us in a few moments. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be. It's Thursday, July 30th, and we are here for our final night of preview week content, and we have opening ceremonies for virtual CombatCon tomorrow. I can't believe it's been 4 days already. It feels like we just started this on Monday, and we all should probably be in Vegas right now. We're not there, so let's make the most of what we got. Please note, one quick note, right? So opening ceremonies tomorrow night. We'll be here on Facebook Live again, but we are going to be starting 1 hour later. So we'll start 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So keep that in mind. As always, though, you can go to the link that is in this message group and everyone we've done this week, actually, for the CombatCon website that has the schedule of events, not only for tonight, but also for the weekend. So some great stuff planned for opening ceremonies tomorrow. So make sure you're on for that. That'll be a lot of fun. As always, I want to thank the CombatCon officers and team for enabling this free event for all of us. Thank you to all the talented team members that have contributed earlier this week, that we'll be contributing tonight, and especially over the weekend at Virtual CombatCon. Thank you guys. And thank you to all of you for attending and watching, whether you're doing this live with us now or at a recorded date. Quick reminder that, again, we've got everything up on the website. If you want to check the schedule out for this weekend, go to the link there. And if you missed any of the presentations this week, or want to watch them again if you saw them, which they're all actually really awesome, so it'd be great to watch again, check them out on the Facebook page here, and I will be uploading them to our YouTube channel probably after the weekend, but they will be there as well. So with that, let's get things rolling. I'll go through the agenda for tonight before I turn it over to Catherine. Catherine's going to be talking to us about the right weapon. We'll have recorded interviews tonight too, actually, just like we did last night. We're going to have Anthony DeLongis first, but we're also going to have Kyle Rowling right after him. Then we're going to have David Loudenslager from the Saber Legion. Will be joining us to talk about the TSL Championship fights from CombatCon 2019. So just last year, you may see me in the middle of that ring directing the championship bats. We'll conclude our CombatCon leadership team interviews with Christopher Nelson, director of our business affairs, and then wrap up the night tonight with a footwork and movement segment with Phil Swift from Terra Nova School of Swords. As always, post any questions you have for any of the presenters in the chat. They're all monitoring and will be monitoring, and I'm watching it as we go through. I've got it here in my ear, so I'm listening as we go through. Post there, and we'll talk with the presenters about that. If you have any technical issues that you experience, let me know that in the chat as well, and that'll help us make sure things stay moving as smooth as they have been for the past couple days. And I can't tell if I've had too much coffee or not enough, but I have coffee here, so you'll see me take a few drinks as we go through the night. As always, nothing is perfect. If we have any technical issues, just bear with us and we'll get it fixed as quickly as we can. So with that, Catherine, welcome. And let me go through her introduction. Catherine writes novels in her favorite local cafes when not indulging in her love for travel. Aside from exploring the world, this California native may be found designing for theater, reading, or teaching. Caught by Demons is the first novel in her Leah of Midgard series. So, Catherine, hi.
Hello.
I'll turn it over to you.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. So, hello, guys. I think, can everybody see me okay?
You're good. Yep.
All right, awesome. So hello and welcome to my writing focused presentation on choosing the right weapon. My name is Catherine Blanche. I'm the author of the Leah of Midgard series, and I currently have 4 works published, and I'll be releasing my next novel later this year titled Hunted by Demons. I also have some experience in classical and historical fencing as well as stage combat, but I'm by no means an expert in these fields. However, I like to use what experience I have from those classes that I've taken to help inform my fight scenes and my action sequences. So let's begin. It's my opinion that choosing a weapon for your character is a process. It's an opportunity to show the readers something significant about your character, whether they're your protagonist or your antagonist or your supporting character. So first of all, you need to understand who your character is and what would a weapon reveal about them. So of course you should develop your character first and understand who they are, what they want, what their morals are, that sort of thing. And chances are you've already done this. However, their personality and experiences should inform your decision. What sort of combat training do they have? Are they a soldier? Are they a civilian? Are they wealthy or poor? What's their opinion on violence? All these things kind of work together to help inform that decision. So the sort of character that carries a sword openly is very different from the sort of character that carries a concealed knife. So be specific and choose with purpose. Last year, I brought this topic up during conversations with a variety of fencing masters who regularly present at CombatCon, and many of them had the same opinion, that there tends to be a lot of missed opportunities here. So take your time and see how you can develop your character further through their actions and through their weapons. For example, there's a book called Swordspoint by Kushner that's centered around duels. I've got a copy with me right here. Here's how it looks. And so in one scene, a young wealthy gentleman named Michael stumbles across a renowned duelist named Richard St. Byre, and he's suddenly gripped with this desire to train with St. Byre. So he rushes after him down the street. And this is from their first encounter. St. Byre looked quickly around and kept walking. Michael broke into a run. As his footsteps neared, the swordsman was suddenly against the wall with his cloak flung back, hand gripping his sword. It was not the sword of a gentleman would wear, but a heavy, undecorated weapon whose stroke would almost surely kill. Michael skidded to a halt in the slush. He was glad no one was there to see this. And so this is used to show us a distinct difference in the social status and wealth between the two characters. So what the description of the sword tells us about St. Byre is he's direct, he's on edge, he's worked hard to earn his reputation, and he also appears to expect trouble. He's not carrying this weapon for show, but he's carrying it for defense. So he's likely made a number of enemies. Put simply, the weapon should be a device that reveals something about your character both during a fight and outside of the action. A different, more recent example in film. Netflix recently released a movie called The Old Guard. You've probably heard of it. That's based on a comic book written by Greg Rucka. Everything we see in the beginning of the film is modern and familiar to us as an audience. So all the clothes, the vehicles, the phones, everything that we see is very modern and present for what we're used to seeing. But about 8 minutes into the film, we start to notice that some of the characters are carrying swords and one of them's carrying a battle axe, and it seems completely out of place. They're certainly not modern. They're hundreds of years old, if not older. And it's totally unnecessary that these characters would have these weapons with them on this mission or to fight with them. So they clearly have access to other modern weapons, but the presence of these old weapons provokes thought. And it also reveals something to us as an audience. Now we start to expect that these are not ordinary men and women, and that they're somehow connected to another time. So next I'm going to go on to the setting. So settings can help you narrow down what sort of weapon your character would have access to in the first place. And research is key here. If your book is set in a world that is either modern or historical in setting, you don't want to select a weapon that would be out of place. Of course, unless you're intending to create an effect, like in the Old Guard. But in most cases, you don't want to jar your reader. You don't want to confuse them. So really, you don't want to pull them out of that story. So let's say you're writing a historical drama set in the year 1850. And you include a Winchester rifle since you've heard of it before. And it sounds like a good choice that your readers would recognize. The problem is that the first Winchester rifle wasn't created until 16 years later. So even if it doesn't seem like a big deal to you, there's a good chance that you'll eventually have readers that point this out and criticize you. And trust me, I know people who are far more experienced authors than I am who have had this happen to them. And knowing your audience and what their expectations are can be helpful, but you should always take extra time to double check your facts. Other factors like age and gender and social status, occupation, these can also vary depending on your setting, and your time and your location, everything. You gotta look at kind of the individual of who the character is and where and when they are. So there's a popular author of young adult fiction named Carrie Maniscalco. Her novel, Stalking Jack the Ripper, tells a story of a young woman named Audrey Rose who's studying forensics in Victorian London. Here's the book. It's specifically in the year 1888. And Audrey Rose has a habit of sneaking around alone at night. Audrey Rose wishes to arm herself, but there are not many options available, given the circumstances she finds herself in. After all, she's a young woman in Victorian London from a respectable and highly overprotective family. So for her, conventional weapons are not something that she would have access to. So instead, she arms herself with one of the scalpels she uses for autopsies. And it may be unconventional, but it makes sense for her character, since she studies forensics and she has easy access to a scalpel. So next, I want to talk about why your character has a weapon in the first place. So why would your character be expecting a violent confrontation? This should be pretty clear to you as you're thinking about your plot. Is your character going to a duel? Are they traveling through a forest filled with bandits? Are they fighting in an intergalactic war? If you can't tell me why your character is expecting violence, then why would your character be armed? And if you think about it and it doesn't make sense, then just cut it. Also, just because your character is walking into a dangerous situation doesn't necessarily mean that they should be armed either. And in fact, it can actually create a lot more tension if they aren't. And at that point, your reader knows something bad's going to happen, and now they want to keep reading to see what happens next and to see if your character is going to be okay. So kind of similar as improvised weapons that can be useful in the situation. So they can provide your character, or they can provide you with some variety in your fight sequences. And they can also reveal something about your character too, even though they're kind of spur of the moment, whatever's nearby that they're grabbing. So like if a character in a fight grabs the nearest chair to bash somebody's head in with, that says something totally different than a character who like stealthily steals someone's knife and then engages their opponent with like swift and precise attacks. And weapons are not always just something for protection and for violence, or for violence in stories. Weapons can also represent something greater, like Excalibur or Odysseus's bow. They're both examples of weapons that are symbolic. And in these cases, weapons are often used to like represent power and status, but they can hold other meanings as well too. There's a book called Six of Crows by Leah Bardugo. Here's my copy here. And there's a character in this book named Inij, the Wraith. And she's a young woman who's a part of a gang and she has a dark and troubled past. And when she's nervous, she recites the names of each knife she carries. And each one is named after a saint. These are more than just weapons. They represent her relative independence and her protection, her safety. And this is something that she's fought fiercely for. So she treats these knives with reverence because they're not just knives, they're her protectors. And so I've tried to incorporate kind of a variety of different books, which is why I haven't used my own books in this, because my books are all fantasy based. So I try to add a little bit of variety here for you guys. But when you add all these elements together, then this should lead towards what weapon is right for your character. And so now you should have kind of a better idea of what that choice would be. So my advice for you is to don't select a weapon for your character because you think it's cool. Select a weapon that helps your story move forward and reveal something about your character. It's a significant detail, so don't overlook it. And I can't truly tell you what the right weapon is for your character. That choice is up to you as the writer. But I do encourage you to give it some thought before making your decision. And remember that everything in your story has significance, especially the weapons. They create tension and they move the plot forward, and they can be symbolic, and just make sure that you use the most of this opportunity for your characters. And that's pretty much all that I have prepared. And I think this is way too short, is it?
That's okay. We got a few questions, and I've taken some notes as well. So you mentioned you fence as well, and you fight as well, and train. How beneficial is that to the character development, having that practical experience?
You know, I feel like it does definitely help. Originally, I started fencing because I wanted to learn more about that, just to be able to place myself in the character's shoes a bit more. So I do find that it's really helpful. And like, if I'm going to go write a sequence for something, if I'm going to write a fight sequence or an action sequence, it's so much easier for me to write that than like a romance scene. Like, I'll sit there and agonize over a romance scene. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And now it's like, for writing a fight scene, it's so much easier. And I think too, like, not just the fencing, but also the stage combat helps with that too, because then you're learning how to tell a story, not just how to use the weapon.
Cool. Yeah, Jared had come out years ago and was teaching us some stage combat techniques, and I'm not a stage guy. I've acted, but I'm not a stage guy. And he's like, no, you don't want to hit somebody. You want to pretend you're hitting someone and make it look like you are. And I'm like, okay. And he's going through, and he talked a lot about intention as well as experience, and kind of that like scale. Anything that we want to talk? Can you highlight a couple, like how you can kind of play between those two scales?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like as far as like the acting goes, like understanding the intention of your character, but also who they are, what they are, and where that comes from, that kind of translates over into the writing, especially because now you're talking about like, um, what sort of background do they have? How are they going to fight? How are they going to move differently than somebody who's in a different situation? So like my main character is an elf. And so when she moves, she tends to be very graceful, but maybe she's fighting somebody who's a vampire who's just very fast. And they can basically beat her with timing every single time. And she has to figure out how to accommodate for that. So it can be, I think it's interesting to be able to pull from both.
So the weapon isn't necessarily only the weapon; it's also the intent, the personality, and everything around it and behind it as well. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's super cool.
I mean, like
Um,
even in fencing, right? You'll have certain people who gravitate towards certain weapons. So,
yeah, we find that we were just talking about that earlier tonight. Actually, it's like because a few of us are getting together this weekend and kind of doing a mini little fight drill that we've been hanging. A few of us have been hanging out the whole time, so we're kind of safe that way. And it's like, well, what are we taking? What are we doing? Well, what's our? We're trying to. Well, maybe we'll just do a couple, right? Because we don't find we're finding we love just fighting, right? So we have all kinds of weapons to choose from.
yeah.
Yeah, we've been trying to say, do we really specialize? Do we focus? And a couple of the guys we talked about their favorite weapon, and we hear it in a couple of the interviews, and it's so hard to pin that down. But I can only imagine writing a character that almost the weapon becomes a piece of their identity, I would expect.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And especially like a character like I was talking about with this book, Six of Crows, where you have every character in this book has a different weapon that they specialize in. And it's very specifically done. And it's taken to a very deep level of meaning for the character. So I really think that it just adds another layer to your story when you can involve that or incorporate that.
Cool. And actually, it's funny when we think about like modern now, and we're buying certain weapons, and we want to get involved in the thing. We're all bound by financial constraints. We're bound by social constraints, and where we can practice and who we can learn from. And we have access to everything nowadays, right? Everything's at our fingertips, and it's not the case in period, in the past. And I
Yeah.
can only imagine the difficulty in having a person fight with and train with a weapon that really isn't period specific or even regionally specific. If it is period, has got to be challenging to get kind of research. And you must love research, right? It's got to, I don't know.
I do. I really do love doing research, and I'm researching for a historical project right now, which is set in the Victorian era. And so, really being able to get in and learn more about the period and about different countries in that period is so intriguing. Um, Yeah, and then just throwing yourself in the character's shoes. Like I have a character who he came from a different world, and he comes to our world, and it's sort of going from like a medieval type fantasy to an urban fantasy setting. And he's totally out of his element now, and he's like trying to find something to fight with because he's like, I don't know how to use a gun. I'm like, okay, give me something I can work with here, guys.
Nice. It's cool. I was gonna say, so websites, how can people get in touch? Where can they find your books? Where can they, you know, what do
Yeah,
you,
so if you, I have a website, catherineblanche.com. There's lots of information on there. You can find me on Instagram at Catherine_Blanche, or here on Facebook. I've got a page, the Layla of Midgard series. If you want to find my books, they're available through all major retailers. So like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, I think Walmart carries them even. You can get them in ebook form. You can get them in paperbacks or hardcovers. So pretty much anywhere, just go look up the title and you'll be able to find them.
cool. Thanks. One more thing, if you don't mind. We've been asking everybody about, fond memories and favorite experiences from CombatCon. Anything pop to mind if I put you on the spot for a second?
Yeah. Well, where I live, I'm not really close to any of the instructors who I've trained with over the years. Um, so for me, going back and seeing all these people kind of in one place after several years was really just an enjoyable experience, and to hear what everybody's been up to and how everybody's been growing. That to me was kind of the most special thing when I was there last year.
Cool. Yeah, it's one of the things we always love, just seeing everybody in one place and just connecting again. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I'll keep eye on the chat, and I'll remind anybody out there, if you have any other questions, pop it into the feed that we have going, and we'll make sure we get that right around. But Catherine, thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So cool. Nice. Let's keep rolling here. I will mute you so we can do that. And let's go. So we're going to have two videos tonight, folks. First is from Anthony DeLongis, who we all know and love and have seen many places in many areas. And then the second is with Kyle Rowling, who we also all know and love and have seen many places in many different formats. So they're both great. Really talk about the diversity, like we've been kind of playing all week, the diversity that is CombatCon, right? Whether it's storytelling on film or paper or on the stage, or whether it's preparing and applying the techniques that we learn into tournament settings or personal protection or just personal development and growth. So two great video clips. Let me get these teed up and we'll be back in a moment. So hold on one sec. Let me just open these up. All right, so now I will share the screen. Sorry, a little disjointed for some reason today. All right, here we go.
Hello, I'm Anthony DeLongis, and I am an actor, and a director, and a producer, and a voiceover artist, and a weapons expert. I've been in the business some 44 years and counting. I started in theater, and I have since worked film, television, opera, pretty much everywhere there is to collect a paycheck and do something creative. We're going to be teaching master classes in bullwhip. We're also going to be teaching some fights, some Western fights. I'm going to be doing some cane work. We're doing a class in archery, and I'm sure at some point I'll sling a sword because I've been doing bladed weapons for, well, 44 years and counting. I enjoy the demos because my wife and I, we like to do live performances because there's no back to one. So it helps us keep our skills performance sharp. I'm particularly fond of the bullwhip. I actually created a more efficient, more effective, and more accurate method of working with the bullwhip. I trained Michelle Pfeiffer, I trained Harrison Ford. And it's an amalgamation of over 4 decades of sword work, all the European sword work. I'm also a black belt and an instructor in Shinkendo, which is Japanese katana. I also trained with Dan Inosanto for about a dozen years. So all of those elements together help me create my system with the whip. And I'm also very fond, I'm fond of the katana, obviously, but I'm also very fond of the saber because I do all my weapons on horseback. And that is the Horseman's broadsword. I don't fight very much. When you can, you usually don't have to. And the art of it is what appeals to me. I've been studying, as I said, the European weapons, the Filipino weapons, the Japanese weapons, and they help me be a better teacher, a better performer, and a better martial artist. And the more years I study, the more I recognize the elements in all the martial arts that bridge the gaps and that connect the arts. There's more things in common than there is, disparately different. Action is one of the most powerful storytelling tools an actor or a director can have, because it can get an audience emotionally invested in a character on a visceral level, not just an intellectual level. So you can really, if you do your job well, you bring them into the fight. They become a part of the fight. They become a part of the action. They become emotionally invested in the characters, and then everybody has a much more satisfying experience. I'm very big on old school action because when the audience can see the actor actually performing it, I've been lucky enough. They flew me to Shanghai to partner Jet Li and Fearless. I guest starred on Highlander twice in Paris on a story that, well, I wrote the backstory and they wrote the episode for me. That was very nice. I'm a big believer in training the actor so the actor can do as much as possible, because that gives you something that's priceless, which is credibility. And when the audience sees the actor doing this, it allows them to identify with the character, because what you want is someone watching this to go, I could do that too. If I had to, push came to shove and the situation, arose, that I could dig deep and also, rise to the occasion. And that's, again, a very satisfying emotional experience for the audience.
Very cool. I don't know if he would like this or not, but I'll geek out a tiny bit. And the first time I remember seeing Anthony DeLongis on film was actually as Blade in Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren. So I don't know how he would react with me saying that. So maybe I'll get an email after this or a phone call saying, you shouldn't have said that. But I don't know, that was the first time, and I'm still a fan because my kids still like that movie, believe it or not. So that was great to see. And one of my guys here at CSA, made the time and stayed extra and did the masterclass in whip, and was incredibly sore afterwards, but learned an amazing amount. And I know it was just such an awesome experience. I wish I would have had the opportunity. I would have made a point of it this time, but 2021, if he's there, I will be in one of his classes as well. Next one I want to bring up is Kyle Rowling and a video that interview he did back in 2016 as well at CombatCon. I trained first time I had an opportunity was back in New York with Jared and one of the weekend intensive workshops that he hosts, and Kyle was there teaching LED sabering or the movements from the Star Wars universe. And it was amazing. It was awesome. It was a blast because I'm a geek, and that's part of what we do here as well, as the LED sabering with the Saber Legion and other groups. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as well, but it was great to train a bit with him and learn from him, right? And I stayed in the master class in 2019 last year on the Monday and did some additional piece work with him, and it was just a lot of fun. So let's pull that video up and we'll go through and see that. So bear with me for a second here and we'll get this rolling as well. And we'll come back in a few minutes.
Hi, my name is Kyle Rowling. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I'm a fight director. Why do I fight? Look, I've been an actor and a martial artist since I was 8 years old, and I always was looking for a way of combining the two, and it wasn't until around 1993, 94 that I found stage combat, and I went, perfect. One thing I found about the martial arts is at an early age is that getting punched hurt, and I didn't like getting hurt. So when I could do stage combat, I could take 1,000 punches, not actually be hurt, get to act that I was hurt, not necessarily win every fight, but definitely not lose every fight either. I love the illusion of violence, but I despise real violence. So, and what makes me, as an actor myself as well, what makes me more sad than anything in the world is finding out or hearing about an actor being hurt on a set when it was unnecessary. An Australian actor was studying acting in Boston University. He unfortunately injured a friend of his during a production, and he thought there has to be a better way. And so he started looking, and he found the Society of American Fight Directors put his acting aside and just trained constantly for the next 7 or 8 years until he was a fight director, and then he flew straight home to set up the Society of Australian Fight Directors. The biggest challenge is trying to, I guess, always influence directors and actors as to what is the best option. We will not always, I mean, we at times will say, no, that's not the best option you can have. This is a better option, but getting them to listen sometimes isn't. So when a director or an actor is dead set locked into what they want to do, and we have to work to that, it's either dangerous or it doesn't look the best that it could look. So that's probably the hardest one, working with other people's egos. The most rewarding then is when you get an actor and a director that is happy to listen to the experience, and you actually get to do it the way you want to do it. Again, as an actor and a fight director, I've been lucky enough to do some roles where I get to do my own fights for myself, and other times I've been lucky enough to double some main actors on sort of very large feature films, which is always a rush as well. You might have been a world-class kung fu exponent or a world-class champion boxer for years, but stage combat isn't kung fu or boxing or fencing. It's a slightly different art again. So keeping your skill set, but understanding there's a different application to them. My favorite weapon is the one that I'm holding. Okay, yeah, everyone laughs at that. It's a great answer. I don't have a particular, oh, this is my favorite weapon. Yeah, the weapon that I am holding is my favorite one at the time, because there's no point loving something else when this is what I've got to work with. If I had to choose my favorite sort of sword style though, probably katana, Japanese katana. For me, yes, they'll get a bunch of skills, but the most important thing for me is to give them more confidence in themselves. Because confidence in yourself leads you to know, I can do this. And when you're confident, when stage combat is always a partnership, you can't do a fight on your own. So if I'm confident in what I can do, and that confidence flows over to my partner, then they can be more confident in what I can do, which allows them to be more confident in what they can do. And when I'm confident in what they can do, then I can be more confident in them, so I can build more confidence in me. And it's this continuing cycle that we build each other's confidence. And whether it's performing a fight on stage, or whether it's walking down the street, dealing in business, just living their lives, interacting with other people, my goal is always to not create better fighters with what I do, but to create better people. The best thing is when you get the moments, when you see the light bulb go on in the head, and they really understand it. I did a class yesterday on my performance theory. I've created my own acting system called the Lie System, and seeing the 6 students that I had go, holy cow, this is wonderful, it's simple, I can apply it right now, it makes so much sense, and they were all like, wow. So that's the best part of teaching, getting the wow moment. As people, we're all individuals. We all unlock our doors in a different way. Every one of our internal houses have different entrances. And for some people, you can go in their front door for all of them. But others, the front door's locked. So you have to find another way to get the same information that these other 4 students are getting to the 5th student. And if that means I have to go to the back door, no, that's locked, I come to the side door, that locked, I go around and I climb in a window on the other side, being adaptable in your teaching methods to get the same message across to everybody. I was at CombatCon last year, I missed the year before, I've been at every one but one CombatCon so far. Again, it's an intense 3 days in Vegas. There is an enormous amount of wealth of knowledge and experience at CombatCon. So to get the chance to not only teach, but to be taught. Nobody should ever consider themselves finished learning at any point in life. Train now to be ready later. Way back in 2000, I was lucky enough to get the role as a fight double for Christopher Lee on Star Wars Episode 2. And I was running around in a stage production back there going, I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky. A great Australian actor, a very old Australian actor, sat me down and said, dear boy, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. The fact that I had set myself up of training for 22 years before I got that job is what gave me that job. It's not like I walked in and go, okay, I want the job, and then start trying to learn. So learn now. It's better to have and not need than to need and not have. Train now. Jared and I did a fight in January down in Sydney, which is on YouTube. You can go and find it, Edge of Honor Part 3. And we went to a park with nothing in mind, and then we left the park 1 hour later with the sword fight finished. We choreographed, we shot, we choreographed, shot, choreographed, shot. You couldn't do that if you didn't have the skill set to do that before you got there.
Cool. I really want to pick up chain. Not that you guys really care about that, but I really want to pick up learning that chain. I've got to see if I can get some training tips and tricks and some links and some tutorials maybe, and see if Kyle can impart some of that wisdom and remotely, right? Since we're not going to be face to face this year. That, and I actually remember the video, and I wish I had looked at this earlier and would have pulled that video of Jared and Kyle that they shot, because I know it's out there, and maybe we'll try to sneak it in at some point over the weekend. I don't know. Let's see what Jared said. I know he's out there listening. We'll see. This is awesome, right? I can't believe we're Thursday night. We have an opportunity to kind of just present to everyone for free, right? A sampling of what the content that we have out in CombatCon, what we have experienced all as attendees. And I was even fortunate enough to teach a few classes in LED sabering last year, lightsabering last year. It's just one of those experiences that allows to bring all different disciplines and all different pieces and parts together. And I really want to give you guys as much content as we can. And we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule. So I'm going to kind of make a game day call here and pull an audible a little bit and throw up another video of Thomas Potter, who talks a little bit about firearm combatives, which we don't really haven't talked too much about. So it's nice to see that perspective. So let me get that teed up and we can get that rolling too. And then we'll move that right into David in the TSL, which actually David was just in Kyle's video as well as part of some of the sabering work toward the latter half of that video. But let me open this one up and we'll get this one rolling too. So bear with me for 1 second and we'll kick this off.
My name is Thomas Potter. I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And the classes we're running today is weapons handling and tactical movement for film and theater, mostly for film. I am an ex-soldier, stuntman, classically trained actor, and also employed as a military advisor and tactical trainer. Today what we're doing is we're taking the groups and we're teaching individuals how to hold a rifle properly, how to move with it, and how to actually approach a doorway to breach into a room and how to clear it. And you know, basically it's trying to jam what is a 30-hour course in a couple hours. So it's sort of a matter of just getting them the rudimentary pieces. A lot of times what happens is independent filmmakers especially will pull favors and they will get tactical gear. They'll get the costumes, the uniform, they'll get all the stuff, and they'll have an idea of what it's supposed to look like. But, you know, I've discovered that 8-9 times out of 10, they don't have the people that have any training on how to do this well or at all. And the problem with that for me is that in the last 20 years, we now have, in our Western societies, we now have 10 million plus Dick and Janes who have spent a considerable amount of time under arms. And to me, it feels kind of disingenuous to try to throw something out there that is tactically so incredibly wrong. And I do understand from an artistic point of view that you can't always do it right for camera because it doesn't read well. So you have to have a compromise to make both of those things work. And a lot of times what makes it workable is having performers that know how to use the tools, so that when they pick up a weapon or they've got their weapon at the low ready and they're moving they're moving down along a building and they're going to stack up at a doorway, they actually look like they've done this before 1,000 times, and it's what they do, it's how they live. There's a problem a lot of times when you see stuff where you'll watch a show and you'll see 6 people coming through a door and entering into a building. and they'll put the hero as the first person going through the door. Well, why would you put the person you don't want to die as the first person getting in the path of the bullets? He's never there. It just doesn't work like that. So little things like that will make people like me just a little crazy when I'm watching it. When you see people coming through and you can tell if there's 6 people again entering and moving down a hallway and there's one guy that you can tell is not carrying the weapons properly, is awkward, looks like he's uncomfortable. Well, he probably is, because he's probably never done this before. So a little bit of training and time for certain bigger productions is easy for them to pull up. But for the independents, they need to try to find the people that have even a basis of training in order to do this. A lot of times you can tell just by looking at them and seeing the way they're dressed, the way they've got their battle rattle tightened down, you know, so stuff doesn't move around. You know, little things when you're watching movies, when you see a guy gets out and they know it's a hostile situation and they get all the way up to the door and the guy puts a round in the shotgun. There's already a round in that shotgun. I'm sorry, there's already a round in that shotgun. If they're going in hot, everybody's loaded, it's safety's off, and away we go. I fight because when I was a kid, my dad's an ex-prize fighter, so I learned how to fight. I learned how to box, and then I learned hardstyle Shotokan, and then when I was in the military, I was part of an armed combat team as a team leader, and we did Defendo. And then from there, I did, with the French Army Commandos, I did Savate. And I really have discovered over the years that I like finding new things. And I like seeing stuff that works. And I like reading the histories of different things and saying, but you know, that worked in the 1400s. I don't see why it can't work now. And trying it. And seeing how you can create things out of it. Especially with theater and film. If there's a piece of action in a film or violence in a script for a theater, it's there for a reason. It's part of telling the story. It's part of how your characters are motivated from point A to point B. And if you don't actually know how to do these things, it's going to be hard for you to try to teach them or direct them as their characters on how to fight, right? Most people in Western cultures never get in a fist fight past grade 5. There are so many of my students that I've asked over the years, and that seems to be the number. So then sometimes when you watch stuff on TV, that's what you see, is you see somebody who has never been a fighter ever. Yeah, so that's why I continue to fight and to train and to try to learn new stuff. If you come to CombatCon and you actually look at the people that are here, you can just, and I did it one year where besides teaching, I was taking as many classes as I could. And I think on the Saturday, I was at the first class, and the last thing I did was somewhere like 9 o'clock. I think, no, it was 8 o'clock. It was right before the ball started. And it was good. It was fantastic. 2 people back in Vancouver who couldn't make CombatCon because of their work things, and they train at Blood and Iron with me, but they are also writers. And they both wanted to come here, not necessarily for all the combat classes, but they really, really wanted to come for the writing, all the writing tracks and all that good stuff. You know, you can gain so much information and knowledge, whether it's about how, just from having listened to one of the writer classes 2 years ago, I picked up an awful lot of stuff on structure. I think you read a book and you understand it, but when you understand how the book is written through structure, then it's like, oh, okay, this makes it even more interesting, right? If you want to learn how and you want to train, and really, really be focused on your training. You know, that's what you need to do. And if you're up in Vancouver, Blood and Iron Martial Arts. That's where you'll find us. Thank you.
That was nice. Good. Glad we had a chance to show that. It also tied nicely back to what Catherine went through earlier tonight, right? So it's all connected, and that's really the kind of cool thing about it, right? So I'm glad we had a chance to do that. I'm glad I thought about doing it. Thank you, Jared, for putting the link up for the video that you and Kyle did. So it's in the chat for those who want to see it. If I could have downloaded it, we would have played it. Maybe I will in the background. I'll try to download it real quick. But what I will say now is we've got David Laudenslager with us from TSL. David, hey, thanks for joining. I hope I got you unmuted there.
I think I'm unmuted now.
You are
Thank
good.
you for having me.
Awesome. So let me go through the official bio. David is a National Fight Director and Representative for the Northern California Charter of the Saber Legion, TSL, an international LED Saber combat organization. Since March, he's been the host of Repost and Repost, a weekly show that reviews and analyzes past TSL fights. David has fought in 3 TSL national tournaments, taking home 2nd place in the 2017 TSL Exotic Saber Division tournament, 3rd place in the 2018 TSL Standard Saber Division tournament, and 2nd place in the 2019 TSL Tag Team and Standard Saber Division tournament, one of which we'll be looking at in a little bit. In addition to LED Saber combat, David currently trains an Italian rapier at the Davos European Martial Arts School under the guidance of Stephen Fick. So David, thank you again for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I will turn over to you. I know we got some videos, so I'll team up in the background. When you're ready, let me know and we'll shoot them off.
Okay, so I'll just queue up this video. So on my show, we go over TSL matches of the past, and we kind of analyze them. One, to help people understand how to break down watching fight footage, whether it's their own fight footage or somebody else's fight footage. And then a lot of times, I'm not necessarily going to do that now, but a lot of times I'll go into why certain tactics or why certain habits that people might have, good or bad, work or don't work in a fight. I might go into detail and talk about like leaning or someone's stance or what they did that made that so effective. So we're going to break down 2 matches from TSL 4 last year at CombatCon 2019. The first is, they're both from the Standard Saber Division. It's the finals matches. The first is the 3rd place match between Jason Newing of the Maryland Charter and Christian Ka'anapu of the New Mexico Charter. And the finals match was between Alan Block of the Northern California Charter and myself, also from the Northern California Charter. And so just to cue up the 3rd place match a little bit, Jason has a background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has been the exotics champion for the last 3 years. So in our exotics division, this is his first year getting into the finals of the Standard Saber Division. He is our current championship series world champion as well, something he achieved this past March. He has a very good reach. He is very athletic. He has a lot of quickness to get to close distance. And then Christian, we usually see Christian mainly at the national tournament, but he is constantly training. I believe he has some background in Japanese martial arts based upon his stance. He is very deceptive with his speed and his distance. And it's an entertaining fight. So Tom, you can cue up that first fight.
Graham, we're ready for our 3rd place match. Christian Ka'anapu versus Jason Newing.
Who do you got here?
Jason.
Jason. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be that guy.
If he's...
But I do like Jason for this.
If he's calmed down since the fight with Al.
Yeah. I think he has. I know he's not. I know he was not expecting that, especially being in front a couple times on that one. That had to be a hard loss.
Yeah. That had to be a tough one.
Especially because this is what he wants. Now that he gave up the exotics, this is the fight he wants.
Oh,
there you go.
Christian with the first point, though.
Yeah. Christian, you cannot take that away from Christian.
I was telling you earlier, the amount of work this dude puts in and trains. I mean, you can find his training videos. Him and his wife spar constantly in this concrete room. It looks like.
Yeah.
And they do this really cool camera angle when they do it. Check out some of the videos. They're on the Saber Legion stuff, but they're training constantly. If you follow him and his wife, they're putting in the work, and it shows. I mean, look at it. He's right here in the third place match for the TSL 4.
Could very well have been in the first place match.
Oh, easily.
The way he was ahead of David.
Yep. I think he might have fallen into the trap that some of the fighters have fallen into this week, is protecting a lead and protecting his lead instead of going for the kill. You know what I mean? David became the aggressor there, where I think Christian needed to stay as the aggressor.
We talked about that all weekend, about you cannot protect your points.
You can't.
Not in TSL, because they're going to come for you. They know the time. They know how they got to get in there.
Blue point. Blue takes 2 straight points to go up 2-1 now. Oh, thank you guys. We appreciate that. The love.
It has been a pleasure to meet Thor.
Yeah, and work with Dale. I mean, we met last year at TSL 3, but to actually get to hang out together and chat, and
I've been announcing for Dark Watch, and you've been doing everything out there in Minnesota, and it's just been good to work with you.
Heck yeah.
2 up now.
Oh, 2-all. Just what we expected from this third place match.
Oh, of course. Jason, again, he's got to kind of take a couple hits, and then he just goes
Look
for
at who we have surrounding this ring judging this, though. We have Charlie Cummings. We have Tom Amoroso, Kay. You have Terry Birnbaum, Director Melody in the ring. I mean, you have the best of the best of the judges, the directing, you know what I mean?
Well, Kay's a director, too.
Recovered. Blue receives point.
Blue gets the point, moves up 3-2. We're leaving nothing to chance, right? You know what I mean? Like, you have experience.
Yeah, you have director, owner.
Not only are these fighters not going to argue calls, but I mean, even if they were to be a call, everyone trusts the people making this call.
Kay has something like 30 years in the martial arts watching fast movement. So, he's very good at what he does. And watch how he moves around the ring.
I mean, you're actually seeing most of the administrative team out there judging and directing this match. That's how important it is to everybody. We're knotted up at 3 now.
For TSL, these are the most important matches. I mean, these actually go into the rankings.
Right.
How far they got, who they beat. This is all taken.
Oh yeah, Jason got the outside arm there. Goes up 4-3. Now this is a fight for a gorgeous saber, so there are things on the line here. Besides bragging rights.
That's real money, too. These sabers are worth a lot of money.
Them sabers are worth dough.
Like $600-700.
Ooh, I saw Red. Red got in on the inner arm. Wow.
4 up.
This is our 3rd or 4th tie. And we're 4 points in. Ridiculous. Or 8 points in, I guess, technically.
He just moves around.
Yeah, that motion's a lot of...
Look at him. Look at the way he goes back like that.
Yeah.
He's not leaving anything to chance. He's staying out a little bit out, but just enough in.
Oh!
And look at him. He went low, and then he increased he goes all the way around, crescent moon, brings it up to the head. That's what I've been talking about.
Yep.
The continual motion. That is the most important thing about the way Jason's fighting. He has that continual motion, knowing that the second one's coming, the third one's coming, the fourth one's coming.
While he's still moving forward, right? Getting blocked while still moving forward, and having that continuation of the wrist to come all the way around to a new target.
Do you know how hard that is to block? And he's doing that all with his wrist.
Yeah, honestly.
He's not moving his whole arm. He's doing that all with his wrist. Do you know how hard that is? That's Red. 5 up again.
The skill of these fighters is so
unbelievable.
Impressive. We've only been going for an hour 15. This is amazing.
I saw Red come through on that one. Red takes the... Oh, no, I don't show. I'm not going to say anything. There's too many people calling.
We're knotted at 5.
I saw Blue get in here before the counter. Awarding point to Blue.
Director Melody sees it clearly. She gets Blue point. 6-5 now.
You got it.
He's staying out. Did he get past that block?
I don't know. I see split.
Red point.
Oh, Red gets the point.
6 up.
Tied again.
And you have to say, Director Melody is in a point where she has all these people around her. I mean, and she has to take their thing, but also make her own decision. That's hard.
You have your bosses watching.
Yes.
Wow.
one point. Wow. Could have been in the very end.
Wow.
But takes third.
Third place in standards, first place in exotics. What a weekend for Jason Newing.
All right, you're back, David.
Okay, so a lot of things with that match. You know, it's a very close match. They're both very mobile fighters. The things I look at, you know, seeing that, and one of the things, if you're not familiar with LED saber combat, is how these blades handle differently. You know, there is a lack of a bend. When blades make contact, there's not really a bind of the blades. There's a lot of slip. So you see a lot of different actions and exchanges in that fight where both fighters are kind of reaching in at the same time. They make contact, and then they kind of slide down to the arm. And some of that is, you know, the right timing. You know, Jason obviously being quick and getting a lot of those in on the arm, but also falling prey susceptible to it. Basically, the thing that happens is that they stop moving off the line at that point. They're very mobile fighters. They're constantly circling each other. But when they get into distance, they kind of come into this straight on kind of clash, which is a natural thing that most fighters want to do. But it kind of falls into one of the traps of, you know, when you're, and they're not necessarily used to other weapons. These are their primary weapon-based martial arts. One of the things that I find moving from something, say, like rapier or longsword into, you know, we only have usually a suba. This one doesn't have a suba on it, but it's just a little, you know, 3.5-inch suba. It doesn't really stop anything. So getting those shots to the arm illustrates the importance of cutting mechanics and making sure that your guards are properly protecting and your stances are properly protecting you, because your blade can protect you, but there is essentially no real guard to protect you other than in a minimal circumstance. So that's the first thing you see. The next thing I would say is it very much, you know, they play a game of caution where they're kind of dancing around each other and then they're waiting for that exact opportune moment. And there really isn't an opportune moment. You know, they're basically in time with each other, which is why so many of the exchanges were much closer, where it was just like bam, 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 and it was back and forth. And sometimes Christian would get it, sometimes Jason would get it. Jason's reach definitely helps him out in that he can cast off from two-handed stance to this one-handed stance, and kind of moving quickly. That allows him to kind of glide right into distance and make that contact. It's one of the things that he's known for as a fighter. He's very effective at doing that. At just basically becoming, being out of distance and then just closing all of that distance and already making contact. So it's a very close fight. Jason just squeaks it out at the end before it goes to sudden death. Just gets that last exchange in. And just those little steps off to the offline is really effective. Sometimes he's only stepping the width of his foot to the left or to the right when he's doing those one-handed cast outs or those orbital or molinet kind of strikes overhead. But it's enough to buy him time if Christian's blade is on the opposite side. So it's very much a great example of using these micro movements and adjustments to get that little bit of extra time, because in TSL, it's first hit. There is no afterblow. So getting that first hit is going to be the advantage for it. And that's how Jason was able to pull out that victory. Tom, anything you saw when you were watching that?
Sorry. No, you covered most of the points. I mean, LED sabering is such a different set of different beasts than any steel weapon, right? The way the blades react with each other really allows for a lot of quicker movements, and it really allows for transitioning from a one-handed style to a two-handed style, because they're not necessarily bound by any particular system to work within, right? And you saw that with Christian and Jason are two totally different fighters in their approach and style to fighting, and it was a really interesting match where they kind of bounced back and forth against each other a couple of times. So no, I think you covered it all, spot on.
Yeah, and I can say from fighting both Christian and Jason, I beat Christian in the round prior to that. I overcame a 3-point deficit to win that. His style, I would almost call it mercurial, because he's also wearing the I don't know what's the name of it. It's the Japanese. Yeah. I'm not familiar with, but it covers his footwork, and he has such small, quick footwork that it's very well masked, that he's able to close a distance, and he's very good at these envelopment defensive actions. So it makes his him seeming open is a different thing. So the only way you can beat him is out timing him, and it's almost, for me, it's scarier to fight someone like Christian than it is to fight someone like Jason, because I know what Jason's doing. He's using the advantages of his body and the way he moves the most effectively, and I can maybe control that. I say maybe, but yeah. So but we can go into the next fight.
Well, Christian is so zen about his movements. He's so smooth and fluid in his movement that it really is hard to predict, right? You really are in a reactive mode with Christian. Let me see the video for us. Give me 1 sec.
Okay. Yeah. So then, so the next video is myself fighting Alan Block, which is kind of an interesting thing. So we're both from the same charter. We started in TSL in like late 2015, early 2016, training together. We've kind of gone on our own different training paths over time, but we pretty much were training at the very least like once a month together. At times we were training like once a week, once every 2 weeks, especially that year. And so this was a very familiar fight. So there's going to be things you're going to see that either I might do or he might do that you might not necessarily do if you fought either one of us, but because of that familiarity, we react a different way. The big thing I would say in this is that it's very much a finding the exact right timing, and an example of using footwork to allow you to get a counter when you've been beaten on time. So those are two things to look for when you watch this match. So Tom, you can hit play.
Everybody has come here. Look at this. You know what? I wish everybody could see what I'm seeing, because you know what I see? I'm seeing charters from around the country, from other countries. We have Mexico here. We are seeing such an amazing amount of people who have come together for this one moment. They have all fought hard. Everybody wanted to be in this ring right here.
This is what we do it all for, yeah? TSL, tournament champion.
Yes.
This is what the whole weekend's built around.
I see so many smiles, man, and tiredness over here from our Portland guy. Not even acting weird. He's so
smiling.
Tired.
And we're still taking shots at stage.
Look at Jared over there, big old smile on his face.
Beaming from here.
That's what this is all about,
I see a lot of friends. I see a lot of great people.
Ruth is not giggling for once.
No.
This is a serious situation.
California versus California.
Sorry, I hit my mic.
Alan Block, the returning TSL tournament champion. David Lauderschlager, MVP of the weekend for everything he's done.
No matter who Alan freaking fights, he's got that same look on his face.
Yep.
You can see it through his mask.
It's the poker face, man.
Look how quiet it got in here, man.
Yeah,
it's so freaking
the
quiet.
The only voices you can hear are
kids.
And
the kids over there, yeah.
And we're really just being kids.
And really, all of a sudden, I feel really weird about the things I'm saying. But nobody's really listening to me.
Alan,
they're all in on this fight.
It goes up 1-0.
Alan is so into this. He is.
Yeah, not a lot of conversations happening right now. All that ambient noise we've been hearing all weekend just went away.
Look at all the judges and the way they're going around. They need to see. Alan looks like he made it in. Rude takes the point. 1 up.
Yeah, anyone tuning in from anywhere, thank you. This is you're here for a special moment right now.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about that. Everybody's got to have smiles. Just bats him away, holds it out there, and then David ran right into it. But it wasn't out of not trying. I mean,
he
was batting it away.
Alan goes block, strike, and takes the point 2-1.
Not even big blocks, there's a push
they were
out, push out,
effortless
push out.
blocks.
Yes.
Effortless blocks. he's
Look
exchanging.
at Dave. He goes, hey, you already hit me, man. What the heck?
Who gets the point? Not
You got it.
2.
2 up again.
Oh, man.
What did I say? This was going to be a chess match.
This is...
They fight each other so much.
I'm sweating so hard.
I'm hardly sweating.
All right.
Oh, so looks
Quick
like red
exchange.
came in.
All judges call red. Point goes to red. 3
This is red's chance to make the deficit 2 instead of 1, you know, and that's the most
Are
important.
we going to see some separation, or is it going to stay about 1-2 points or tied
It
throughout
could
this whole
go
match?
either way. You know, it's really up to David knows what he's going to do. It's all about just getting past it. I think we could. Oh, I think I saw David come in.
Yeah,
from
David
down
on the
in
arm.
Again, we are tied up.
Knotted at
3 up again. I told you this was going to be a chess match.
Are we going to have a new champ, or are we going to have a repeat champ for the first time ever? 3-3. How much time's left?
Just wanted to make sure it was making class. We know you love us.
1 minute and 3 seconds remaining in this bout.
Somebody's going to have
Tied
to get
at
ahead.
3.
It's palpable in here, man.
Oh,
he came down
right on the head, right on the head. Allen goes up top.
He says, David, if you run at me, I'm going to slap you.
You know, I don't got it. I don't want to do it, but I got to do it.
Yeah, you know, we train together. I'm going to hit you in the head.
4-3. Allen with a 1-point advantage.
From under.
David,
That's the second time he's done that same thing against him. Tied up again.
I don't think we're going to see more than a 1-point separation. This may come down to sudden death. My stomach is churning
he
right
goes
now.
hot. We haven't seen this yet.
Over
This is hard.
over the head, two-handed stance. I think it even
David goes, look, are you trying to kill me?
30 seconds remaining.
Just ran
pulled
right
it down.
past him. We got 1 blue and some red.
3 call red. 3 call red.
I heard David say,
All right, we're doing a little conference here. A little conference.
This is intense.
These points are
They
so
want
important.
to make sure the
These
right
points are
call gets
so
made.
important. 4-4.
Mama
Under
Melody,
30
Mama
seconds
Melody
for
went
going.
over. She made sure that
Allen's,
Allen's stuff was all on
his
correct.
bib
You
was,
know,
his bib was straight.
yeah, you don't get anything on your bib, Allen.
Got to adjust champions' bibs just like you do children's.
You can't let the mustard get on the armor.
That's why I had to get a black one this time.
Yes. The black gear is looking stunning, by the way. All right, here we go. Joking aside, it's 4-4.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do a little joking, but my chest is still.
Red gets the point.
I think that was the right. I wholeheartedly believe that was the right.
Wow.
5, switch.
5, switch.
Good reminder from the owner, Charlie. Oh, you got a hug. These two love each other, man.
They do. Here we go.
Sweep the leg. Do you think they wanted this match at the very end? I'm sure
I think
this
they
is
did.
the dream.
I think they did.
This has got to be
I think
part
they're
of the
happy
dream.
that they're going against each other right now.
5-4,
Allen.
Allen up by 1. Does he get it? Does that blue bringing it back?
Blue did. Tied again at 5.
I don't know if anybody could really push him like this, you
Allen
know?
can get up 1, but he just can't get up 2.
Oh, wow. It looks like we got a blue call.
2 for red.
Red 4 as well. Point. Red.
And red goes
6-5,
back on top.
back again.
Back on top. 15 seconds today here.
Got too many legs.
We're looking at 6-5. We're getting
Looks
down
like
to time
blue. We
here.
got some red.
Uh-oh,
We got
I
some
see
blue. We got
red.
some Simo.
Red goes
Red
up
goes
by
up
2.
by 2.
Under
This
15
could be
seconds
it.
remaining.
This could be the end. Red again, it looks like.
3. Yeah, 8.
Red is up by 3, and this is just how it goes sometimes.
I don't know if David's going to have time to close the gap.
5 seconds.
There's a
5
frustration.
seconds remaining.
There's a frustration in this on
8-5.
David, but there's also a man.
Time is expired.
Final
exchange.
Oh, they know what's happening.
They're playing around. This is over.
Well, they know
Let's see
who
who gets the
won.
last point. Oh!
And it looks like.
And still your TSL tournament champion, Mr. Allen Block. Goes into child's pose in the middle. Just kidding, he's bowing. But what a champion! What a match!
Hey, you want to?
Oh my
you want
gosh!
To or do you want me to?
Oh my gosh! No, we're gonna let them present belts and present
Alan
things.
just likes to come over and talk. Trust me.
And yeah, we'll see if we can get the champion before we're out of here. We'll stick with it for a little while. Why we?
Thank you, everyone.
Wow, I'm like shaking. That was just
for being here.
That was amazing.
For this moment.
That was amazing. What a final match. What a final match.
Alan.
2 times.
I told you Alan wants to come and talk.
2 times. Alan's right here.
I wanted to bring it back to you, David.
All right. Yeah. So I can speak a little bit more about that match since I fought in it. A couple things I know that I did. Some of my footwork, I was operating very foot heavy. My feet were landing solid, which is just, it's something I do in real life with when I'm just stepping. My wife hears me stomping upstairs. And so a lot of times that'll throw off my balance. That's a big thing that I did which created a slower time and the ability to close distance. Some things that you might have noticed, when Alan goes into a high guard and I kind of just shrug it off, that was kind of like an old thing because we had a person that within our founding charter that essentially would do that all the time. And it was basically one of those things where he would always get us on it. And I was like, I will never fall for that ever again. If anyone does that, I'll wait. Unless I'm down 3 points, I'll wait. So other things that I would say I noticed is that because of that heavy footwork, it also detrimented my ability to move off the line when I'm moving forward. So I was stepping very heavy, some of that probably fatigue, some of that mental. There's probably a lot of aspects going into that. But Alan basically working in this very tight defense, being able to take half a step, half retirement back, and be able to either go into a nice guard where his blade is properly protecting him, and he's gaining enough distance to make the contact with me. That was the big thing that led to his success. A lot of his strength comes from his core. So it's very deceptive how hard he actually can defend, which is why you'll notice a lot of times, like I get these little quick, these tap, 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 like, and we're just like literally tapping around the blade. A lot of times, because that's how I fight, I try to just get a contact point in more so than just try to get that huge solid strike. So you get a lot of those taps, or sometimes I'm also kind of working what I call a two-handed rapier game where I'm extending and I'm kind of moving around and I'm trying to do just like a quick beat or a cavazione underneath their blade and get that little beat attack. But if someone's in a proper guard like he was, it makes it a little more difficult. So he can do that and then rotate between these nice clean guards, and that it was able to defend against some of those attacks that I would say probably against most other fighters in TSL, I would have gotten a shot to the arm in or something like that, because after the second or third, they're not necessarily thinking, but he has a very good fighter vision, and that he's always thinking to the from hold to hold. So so he's always thinking at that point. So it's very difficult to sometimes work within that. That's the big element that happens in that. At the end, you notice the score kind of changes and separates. The big thing that happens there is that I was down points and I was needed to score points quickly, but at the same time I was not allowing myself the time to gain his next action. So a lot of times I'll use Stringiri to gain to gain on their next action, to get to out time them on that. But I was not able to do that because I was rushing. So some of that comes down to just like in the game time situation. So it's something that I always tell people on my show, that's something you need to work on, is like, think about, what's your mindset? How are you thinking through a match? What are the different things that are happening? How can you, what are ways you can win a match or lose a match all in your head that has nothing to do with the skill level? That the skill level, we could say, like, if Alan and I are neutral, like that, some of that loss, not to say that Alan is better than me at this point, but some of that loss is due to what happened in my head, what things I was doing and things I was not doing. So it's about gaining and training for that mindset. And those are the big things that I take away from watching that match again and thinking about where I was. Anything you noticed as the director that was in the ring?
You know, you guys were a fun match to direct, to be honest with you. You know, you weren't so worried about the little snipey shots. You were really trying to get into your opponent's measure. You're really trying to take your opponent and understand what they're doing and actually respond to their actions. You were fencing, right? And I know the weapon's different and the reaction of the weapon is different, but you were really fencing with each other. You were trying to figure each other out. You were responding to different invitations. And it's why it was back and forth through most of that match, right? And a lot of those were very close calls. We pulled a conference together just because I wanted to make sure that we were all seeing the same way. We don't do that. We never do that often, but every once in a while, when it's an important match like this, you want to do that. You want to make sure that all the judges, and I think Thor said it, right? We had, you know, 2 owners and 2 other directors judging. And, you know, we joked about this before. It's a textbook example of how to line judge, right? Because we were all moving, we're looking, trying to get that right vision. And you guys kept us on our toes because you really did continue. You weren't fighting that linear fight. You used the entire space you had. And it was fun. Just a fun match to direct, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and one thing I've mentioned to a lot of times in my show is sometimes if you are a contact fighter as opposed to a larger strike kind of fighter, it is to your advantage to think about where you are in position to your judges. There are definite times that I can see that if I can't say for certain whether I got the hit in, but if I did get that like light contact and it was only seen by one judge, that a slight shift of the angle might have been the difference. And that's not just this fight. I can point to so many fights where like I can see where another fighter, I'm like, man, I definitely saw that happen from this angle, but from that angle, it's totally different. So it's something to think about as a fighter, what quick adjustment can you make to make sure that the most judges and director, if possible, are seeing what you want them to see. If your tendency is to hit someone on their left side, then you need to make sure that that side has the judges that are seeing. Now, all the judges there are great, but if you're not in that situation, you're in a regular fight, it's important to think about, okay, well, these guys aren't really seeing what's going on. These guys are seeing what's going on, or the director's over here. Okay, I need to make sure that the guy, his left side is on, that's where, if that's the area where I like hitting. I have a tendency to do these thrusts that kind of like graze the arm, and they can be sometimes missed and hard to see, especially from the other angle. It's almost impossible to see it. So it's one of those things where it's just, thinking about your positioning in relation to judges is an important game aspect to, to win in the sport.
Yeah, we talk about you got to tell a story, right? And you got it. That story includes, I didn't get hit. I hit my opponent and I cleared myself so I didn't get hit back. Right. And sometimes if you don't make that clear and you don't show that, it's not easy for the judges to see because it's just not, not a clean exchange, right? You really got to tell that story when you're fighting, right? I think Jared's told me that 1,000 times, right? Tell that story. Cool. This is awesome. Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, thank you so much.
Can you talk to anything else you want to hit or cover?
Yeah. So if you like this and you're interested, the Saber Legion has our Facebook group that we have as a private group. We have content pretty much every day of the week except for this week. We deferred to CombatCon in this instance, but you can there are people going over 19th century saber and how to apply it to the LED saber. I'm doing my analysis. There's workouts. There's people talking about conditioning, gear. All of those things that you can pretty much, sorry, there was just the echo in my head for a second. You can pretty much, get a good gauge of what's going on in the LED saber community. We also, about every other week, we are now showing what's called Tsl Underground, which is something where our charters are filming and we're doing the commentary live and the scoreboard live. So we can react to those in real time. We just had our last premiere this last weekend, and we're going to probably have one in about 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have another episode of about 3 matches. So it's a way of, while we're still locked down, but there's certain areas that are safe for small groups to gather, we are enabling that functionality for our members. So if you enjoyed that, check out the Saber Legion group and page on Facebook. And like I say, I'm one of the national directors, and there's lots of people there that can answer your questions.
Very cool. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Chris, thank you for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Cool. Wow. It's been Buff last night, right? This is the last night. So everybody's kind of, we want to do this every day. Well, I don't want to do this every day. It's a lot of work, but, and I want to say a big thank you again to all the content providers this week. It's been really awesome. And I'll put a plug in, as I always try to do about this time in the evening. If you are, well, virtual CombatCon this weekend, right? Opening ceremonies tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern, or sorry, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do opening ceremonies. Make sure you look at the link inside this post for the full schedule for the weekend, all the incredible content you can sign up for and register for that. So continuing the fun, Chris, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. Tonight we're here with Christopher Nelson, Director of Business Affairs.
Yeah, I think that's the title this year.
That's what Tim sent over. So that's what. Thank you again, and I say this to all of you guys. Right, thank you guys for enabling this to happen and putting this out there and getting me engaged. I really appreciate it, and thank you for helping line up some of the great content that we've had. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for spearheading this part of the project. It's all about team effort, right?
Cool. Awesome. All right. So again, I didn't prep anyone with questions, so this is all off the cuff. And if you've been watching some of the nights, I know you guys have. You kind of we're trying to cover a little bit of a nice broad brush stroke across all the different members of the leadership team here. So let's start off with we have business affairs. It seems to cover a lot, right? From donations and sponsorships to on-site vendors and organizations and experience hall. Can you give us some insight into all of that?
Well, originally I just asked to be sponsor coordinator. I mean, that was all I ever wanted to do. That was like 4 years ago now, I think it is. And after that, they just kind of kept asking me to do stuff. And I was like, sure, I could do that. And then it was like vendors and then helping out people on site. Once Nathan, who's from Australia, wasn't going to be there last year. That was another big, huge step of dealing with vendors on site. I hadn't done that before. And it's just all kinds of odds and ends, everything from stuff like getting storage units, wrangling transportation, doing Costco runs, dealing with 100 different little day-to-day things like that.
Cool. It's like it's grows, right? It's such a broad term that everything falls under that, but those pieces are so critical to the community and the culture that is CombatCon. So thank you for everything that you do there. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
We've talked a lot and kind of continuing that thread, right? We've talked a lot about community and family and how CombatCon has kind of touched so many of us in so many good ways. And we've, do you have a favorite memory you can share, or some, something you can, that's audience safe for us?
Of course. So one thing the staff has found relentlessly fun for them to watch is years and years ago, I had thyroid cancer. So I have no thyroid. It was completely removed and all that. And one of the weird side effects is that even though I'm a big guy and I can handle stuff pretty well, it doesn't take a lot to get me super drunk really fast if I haven't eaten. So they bought me like 1 or 2 drinks, and then we were going to go to lunch, and I was just all over the moon and having a great time. And then by the time I'm down out of the elevator, I'd had like a handful of popcorn or something. It was just like, and I'm back to normal. They're like, how do you just switch so fast? I'm like, I don't know. It's weird chemistry. I don't know. Science, magic, something, witchcraft.
Nice. Awesome. So not only are you director of business affairs, right, but you're also obviously an instructor, many classes that you teach throughout the weekend, and you're also a competitor in the HEMA events that we have. Can you give some advice? Balancing that's got to be an issue, right? That's a lot, and plus you're always on call for any urgent emergency, right? Can you give some, how you balance between classes and tournaments and everything else?
Turn off the radio. That's the first step. So one of the more challenging things is it's very difficult to balance between my day-to-day schedule when I'm at the con and if I'm going to do teaching. I have to like leave the radio in the office, tell people, you know what, this hour is someone else's job to handle these kind of emergencies. I'm going to go focus on my class and these students. Or if I'm going to go compete, it's, hey, I'm going to be in the hall for unknown amount of time, you know. So I'm going to go take care of that stuff and have some fun. And then when I'm done, I'll come back and hopefully the place hasn't, you know, completely burned down. Usually it never has. It's usually been pretty lame. There's only been one or two times that I've been teaching that I've had like somebody come try to find me about something. And it's usually like, well, not a big deal. You know, they can wait an hour. I'll be more than happy to take care of that then.
Cool. How do you find, so for our members that actually do both the tournaments, whether it's HEMA tournaments, TSL tournaments, the classical fencing tournaments, and the classes, any advice on how they can balance their time between those? Sometimes we're in a HEMA room for a while and we don't have the unknown about classes, and sometimes schedules change and everything else.
Schedules will always change. That's one thing that's a constant, is change at CombatCon. We will always have things changing around us, whether we've planned it or not. You know, and kind of the cool thing about CombatCon is that every year, in a lot of ways, it's a different event. There's going to be something new, something changed, some kind of different bit, whether it's new instructors, same instructors teaching different classes, different tournament styles, different times. I mean, everything can change. And so every year there's always, it's kind of like a Disneyland experience when you only get a limited amount of time that you want to do everything, right? So you want to do it all, but what you're going to end up doing is like 5 or 6 things, and then you have to come back next time to do the rest of it.
Cool. Sorry.
It's okay.
So just trying to get things organized. So let's take the crystal ball out for a little bit, right? And look to 2021, just a year, right? We won't go too far into the future. Anything you'd like to see as a highlight, or you're looking forward to as a highlight for 2021?
So this year we had a lot of big plans. We had reached out and got some amazing volunteers for our HEMA tournament coordinators. We got a team of 5 people that were outstanding. You know, they came up with rule sets, they came up with tournament guidelines, and then we all worked together to flesh out a training program for judges and judging. And I was super excited to try to implement that this year. And I'm super excited for it to work out next year. You know, as long as there's no COVID, I think we'll be okay.
Let's hope not. God, I'm getting tired of this as well. Right, we want to get back to normalcy, or whatever new normal becomes.
Yeah.
As some folks have been saying, right?
Right.
Cool. Now the cliffhanger question. All right. So I've asked everybody at the end of the interview. I've kind of said, so tease us with something that you would normally say, well, that's a story for another time. Right. Something you kind of want to, whet the appetite of the audience out there a little bit that you may never say the answer to, but.
So last year, Tim, Jared, and I had a very long conversation the day they both flew in. So it was like Tuesday night, I think it is. And we had a very long conversation about how we wanted to set some stuff up for the next year. And at the end of the con, going off that conversation, I decided to try and physically show them how I wanted to implement some changes. And the look on Jared's face when he got off the elevator and I told him what was going on was hysterical, because there were some details that I'm obviously leaving out at this point, but needless to say, it was a state of affairs that they had never in a million years expected to see unfolding before them. But that's a story for another time.
That's awesome, and that's absolutely perfect. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. I appreciate it. Anything you want? Any closing? Anything you want to add about this weekend? Anything to look forward to for this weekend?
It's going to be a great weekend. We got a lot of cool stuff planned. We got opening ceremonies starting tomorrow night, so come join us, hang out for that.
Very cool. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. And again, thank you for letting me be able to do this. This was a blast this week. And thank you for coming out and chatting for a little bit.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. So, all right. We have one final presenter for the week. I can't believe it. And Phil will be joining in a moment. He and I have been chatting back and forth behind the scenes here. He was on there for a second or so. We're going to do some footwork and movement with Phil Swift from Terra Nova School of Arms. And there's Phil coming on now. Awesome. Hey, Phil. He's getting his audio hooked up. So one last plug. I really want to say thank you. I'm going to do it at the end as well. But one last plug for this weekend and for tomorrow night. Again, opening ceremonies. It will be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to kick us off and then turn it over to the team to run through the whole night. And then we've got virtual CombatCon this weekend and all the classes we have for there. So Phil, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Oh, you can't hear. No problem. Well, let me let's see. Well, let me do the introduction. We'll see if we can get your audio up and running for you while we're doing that. Let me make sure there's nothing on our side. What I'll do, Phil, I'll try to mute it and unmute it and see if that helps you out there. You should get a request to unmute. I still can't hear you. Let me unmute audio. How's that sound? Any luck there? Can you hear me? You may have your PC muted as well. That kills me all the time as well. There we go. I got you. Very cool.
I tried a new mic and didn't really work. So
that's okay. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works and horrible when it doesn't. But hey, no big deal. We're all here, and that's the most important thing. Cool. Let me do the official intro, and I'll turn the table over to you here. So, Phil Swift has studied martial arts since the age of 8 and has acquired over 5 years experience studying the art of the sword. Phil also learned his longsword foundations from the world-ranked swordsman Adam Franti of the Lansing Longsword Guild. However, Phil quickly learned that his passion lied in Spanish rapier. I always screw that up because I speak too fast and slur my words. Sorry, destreza. In 2018, Phil became certified in the World HEMA Alliance as an instructor with specialization in destreza, and as well as charter rep for TSL recently in 2019. So sorry for messing that up, Phil, and thank you so much again for joining us.
Not at all. Thank you for having me for sure.
Cool.
Let me see if I can you still hear me from here?
That's perfect. Yep. Excellent.
All right, so thanks for having me again. And we're going to go through, since we have limited time, I'm going to try to make my explanations not as long. And I want to go through some mechanics of how I do my footwork. At the same time, I'm going to give you, or afterwards, I'm going to give you a little bit of a warm-up drill that I like to do with my students, but also before my bouts. And if we have time, I want to get into some offline footwork that you can use for your repertoire. So that being said, let's get into our basic stance. So whatever stance you're comfortable in. It could be right foot forward, left foot forward, it doesn't matter. I like to do my footwork in both ways, but for now, I'm gonna have my right foot forward, okay? I like my stance roughly 1.5 to 2 feet wide, and I like to sink into my stance. Now, what I mean by sinking into your stance is, I want you to kind of bend your knees and just sit right into your stance, okay? Engage into your knees. Now, what I don't like to do is, I don't like to do something called teeing up. Now, what that means is, if I were to bring my feet together and I create a T between my right and my left foot, or with my right and my left foot, that's called teeing up. And the reason why I don't like teeing up is mainly because when someone's going for a leg shot, or when I need a little bit of distance between me and my opponent, I can slip my leg back, okay? Now, if I tee up and I want to slip my leg directly back, my rear leg becomes my obstacle. So then I got to move around that rear leg, okay? If I want to do it fast, I want to have some space, and I want to be able to just bring my leg directly back, okay? So that's why I don't like teeing up. So give yourself a little bit of space so that your front leg can pass back if you may need to. Now, I'm going to break down how I advance, retreat, and move side to side, just because I want to show you how I shift my weight and how I use the heel and ball of my feet to my advantages, okay? So I'm gonna break down my advance to you. And right now my weight is 50-50, right down the center, right? And as soon as I start my advance, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shift my weight back to my rear leg. And as I shift my weight back to my rear leg, I'm gonna extend that front leg. When I extend my front leg, I'm just taking a small step. So I'm placing my heel where my toe used to be in my main stance, or just a little bit in front of that toe, okay? And I'm not gonna drop my ball of my feet yet, and I'm gonna refer to the ball of my foot as my toes throughout this session, okay? But I'm not gonna drop my toes yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start shifting my weight forward, and as I shift my weight forward, I'm gonna roll my momentum towards the ball of my foot on my front leg. And then at that point, I'm lifting up my heel on my back leg, okay? Now, at this point where my weight is on my front leg, I'm gonna bring my back leg back right into stance, okay? And the reason why I do this is that I can retreat in mid-step while I'm advancing. So for instance, for whatever reason, say I'm in mid-advance and my opponent does something funny or starts rushing at me, and I need to retreat quick. So I'm gonna start my advance. I'm gonna place my heel on the floor, shift my weight back first, place my heel on the floor where I wanna step, and then I'm gonna start rolling my momentum forward and shifting my body weight. And as soon as I see my opponent coming at me or presenting a threat that makes me want to retreat, I'm gonna push off that back leg. So as you can see here, I haven't finished my advance yet. I'm in the mid advance. So then I'm gonna push off this back leg and I'm gonna retreat. So when I retreat, I'm sort of using the same mechanics in case I need to change my retreat into an advance. So for instance, I'm gonna break my retreat down for you. As I'm retreating, I'm placing my weight over my front foot. And at that point, that's gonna allow me to extend my back leg and reach with my toe. I like to reach with my toe first when I retreat because I like to feel the terrain that I'm in. You may not always be fencing or fighting on flat ground. Sometimes you're on grass, sometimes you're on cobblestones, wherever the case may be. Sometimes there might be a wall behind you. So I like to feel out my terrain. At this point, terrain is good. I can't see behind me, so that's why I like to feel out where I'm gonna step next, okay? At this point, I'm gonna start shifting my weight to my rear leg. And as I shift my weight to my rear leg, I'm going to roll that momentum onto the heel of my rear leg, okay? And at this point, I'm gonna retract my front foot right back in the stance. Now, if in the mid-retreat, my opponent does something or opens up a target and I wanna advance to strike that target, by retreating this way, it's gonna allow me to do that fairly quickly. And let me show you how it's done. So I'm in mid-retreat, I'm going to go into mid-retreat. I'm placing my weight over my front leg, extending my rear foot. With my toe touching on the floor, I'm going to roll that momentum over, bring that weight onto my rear foot, and then all of a sudden I see a target that my opponent opens up. I'm going to use my rear foot like a spring at this point. I have pent up energy on my rear foot. I'm still in my mid-retreat, and then I'm going to use that energy to advance forward and strike. So as you can see here, just by shifting your weight, using the heel and ball of your foot, you're able to go in different directions or opposite directions while you're in your mid-step. My side steps are, I use this mechanics in my side steps as well. So if I'm moving towards the side of my rear leg, I'm gonna start by putting all the weight on the opposite leg, and then I'm gonna reach over with my heel. And I'm gonna roll, as I start shifting my weight, I'm gonna roll that momentum over towards my toe, and then bring my front foot forward. Now, here's the thing. When you go towards the side of your rear leg or your front leg, I like to use my toe first, but you can also do it with your heel. I just prefer to reach with my toe. And then as I shift my weight, I place my heel down and then bring that rear foot back into stance. Now I'm going to show you a little warm-up drill that I do with my students. And the beauty about this drill is you can do it in a confined space. And you can also do it within a group of people as well. You can have someone conducting the drill, telling people to go clockwise, counterclockwise, faster, slower, etc. Now, it's called the square footwork drill is because you're simply doing a square. But by doing this square footwork drill, you're going to exercise all 4 directional movements within this drill. So it's a great warm-up before a bout or before a tournament that you can use. So if you get into your comfortable stance, we're going to start by moving clockwise. And we're going to start with an advance first, okay? So sorry, I'm just backing up so I can get a little bit more space so you can see me. We're going to start with the advance first. Side, back, side, forward, side, back. And then we can speed it up. Side, forward, side, back, side, forward, side, back, side, forward. And then we can switch the rotation. Go counterclockwise. Back, side, forward, side, back, side, forward, side, back, side, forward. And you can repeat that again. You can go faster. You can change rotation on your students, and then you can make it fun out of that. So that's a little drill that you can use, and hopefully it works for you and it works for your students, and you can make fun games out of it. Now I'm going to get into offline footwork, and offline footwork is really cool when you pull them off, but it's very tricky to do it. It requires a lot of timing. But I hope you can add it to your repertoire or start experimenting with it. I don't see it quite often, and so I'm trying to endorse it, I guess. What I like to do is what's called a transverse step. They're diagonal movements forward, and essentially, if you think of yourself, or what I just showed you is basic D-pad movements, right? Got forward, side, side, forward, back, side, side, right? Now think of a joystick and you're gonna be going diagonal now. So what I like to do with that is if an opponent's coming towards me, you can parry and then strike, right? So to do that, we're gonna start doing our transversals towards our rear leg side. And this is a little tricky because you're gonna have to square out your hips when you do this. As you're making your transverse step, you're gonna place your weight over your rear leg. And then with your front leg, you're gonna you're gonna move it kind of in front, but just diagonally from where your basic stance is, like this. And it's gonna help when you square out your hips so that you keep balance. So square out your hips, just like that. And you're gonna land heel first, and then as you roll that momentum forward, you're gonna bring your back foot right into place. Now this is tricky because if at any point you feel your front leg or any parts of your knees hurting, don't do it, okay? So again, I'm gonna show you one more time. I'm just going to put my weight on my rear leg, place my front leg, start transferring the weight over to my front leg. And you're gonna make sure that your the tip of your toes is pointing at your opponent, okay? And as you bring that weight down, pivot your body, bring your leg back into stance. Now you're facing on a new direction, okay? For the opposite side, I like to use my toe first. So what I'll do is I'll put my weight on my back leg, my rear leg, point with my toe. And instead of squaring out my hips, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to profile my hips. So when you're going this way, you square your hips. When you're going the other way, you profile your hips. At this point, I'm going to place my weight over to my front leg, transfer that over, place my heel down, and then with my rear leg, I'm going to pivot that back in the stance. And now I'm on a different line. So think of yourself as using those offline movements as if they're like a matador dealing with the charging bull. It's all in the timing. Charging bull comes, you parry, pivot, attack, right? So you can do that with two hands, one hand, whatever the case may be. And those are your offline footworks that you can kind of use in your repertoire. They're called transversals or transverse steps. They're widely used in destreza, for rapier fencing, but I can totally see it being viable for LED sabers as well. Another thing you can also do is incortada, or and that's essentially if you're on the inside line. If you're in on the inside line and your opponent comes towards you, you could just bring that rear leg behind and then thrust with your weapon, and that gets your body out of the way. It's sort of like it's a body void. You're gonna get your body out of your way, the target that your opponent wants to hit, and then you can hit them with your counter attack. And you can do the same over on this side too, not quite, but I prefer to kind of do it in a way that's more like a stop thrust, but but you're gonna duck with it. So essentially, if my opponent's on my outside and they come at me, I could just take a side step and then go down. So those are body voids. I don't want to get too much into them because it can get pretty messy. But I just wanted to show you some offline footworks today and then give you a little drill to work on. And then show you some of the footwork mechanics that are basic. Does anybody have any questions?
So I didn't see anything come through just yet, but as far as footwork goes, right? We focus on it here so much as well, right? Everything is about footwork. If you can't move, you're not going to be able to fence well.
Exactly.
Any tips or trips for stretching, getting ready to perform the footwork, and how people can do to prep to get into the drills to start doing their exercises?
Yeah, I don't like to, I guess, do stretches before getting into the exercises. I like to just warm up with like physical movements. I find that when you go into stretches and stuff, you kind of like hurt your ligaments before you you get into warming up and all that. But yeah, I mean, that footwork drill is definitely something I like to do, but I like to incorporate transverse steps, like I was saying, and start doing the body voids if you can as well. And just limbering up like that will be great. But it is tough to put it in play. Like in the books, there's so much talks about, offline footworks and all that as well. But when you try to do it in play, it gets tricky because it's a little slower than someone advancing coming forward at you. So it's literally all timing. And so you have to like almost expect it or bait it for them to come at you. And then you're going to use your offline footwork or your body voids, right?
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it really ends up being a partnership, right, with your opponent. And you've got to move in conjunction with them, and your footwork's got to respond to their movements as well as they're responding to your invitation. So yeah, makes perfect sense.
Right. Cool. For sure. I wish I could have done like a class on blade work and all that kind of stuff, but I recently broke my pinky, so Yeah, that was tough for me to hold that saber. I was like, I should have went on my left hand.
I hope you recover pretty quickly with that. Hand
Yeah,
injuries are
thank
the
you.
worst. They really are. I had one earlier this year as well. They're the worst to go through.
Yeah, it was just a matter of not using the right equipment.
Sure.
And we were playing with steel, so that wasn't fun.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to add, or anything you want to into the discussion?
Yeah, you know what? Thank you for having me. And I kind of knew about it last second, so I couldn't prepare this big plan. And with all this time, I wanted to go more deeper into what I want to show you guys, but with the time restraint, this is the best I can do.
Absolutely
I
awesome.
can't get too much information.
No, this is perfect. It's just what we want to do. And thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. I want to get up there. I've got this travel list I keep building, and I want to get out and see all of you guys and kind of make my way around if I can. So thank you.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
To
We'd love to have you in Newfoundland.
I'd love to be there. Good deal. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I can't believe it. We are a little bit before 9 o'clock Eastern. I'm here in Ohio, so I think in Eastern time. So I should think in Vegas time now. So we should be out there. It's been a great week. I really want to say, I'm gonna redo my thank yous. You guys all know this at this point, probably. I want to say thank you to the CombatCon officer team, right? Jared, Tim, Rocket, Chris, right? And everybody else behind the scenes that made this happen. Thank you all for allowing me to be a part of it. I loved it. This was great. I learned a ton this week, which was what I was hoping to get out of it too. And we were able to introduce this hopefully to all of you out there that may or may not be a regular attendee at CombatCon, but you might be thinking about it. So hopefully these all gave you some insight into the variety and diversity of what you can expect to see and what we all love about it and have seen. And you got a little behind the scenes from the what happens with the officers and leadership team for CombatCon as well. It's not over though. Right. So we are going to shift gears a little bit in the next couple of days, but opening ceremonies tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern here on Facebook Live, this opening ceremonies for virtual CombatCon this weekend. And then VCC is all through Zoom, right? It's all interactive Zoom sessions. So register. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the schedule, where you've been, right? Get out there, look out, go to the CombatCon webpage. It's links in this post and every post from this week. Look at that schedule. There's some great content. I'm actually, per plug, I'm doing a longsword yoga class on Sunday, first thing in the morning. So it's yoga with a longsword. So yes, it's fun and you can do it. So come on and join us on Sunday. I think it's going to be 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So not bad. I get to sleep a little bit in on Sunday. It'll be a blast, right? So get out there, register, sign up for the classes and join us. We will have a really amazing time this weekend, as good as we can have remote from where we all are all over the world. So hopefully we'll all get to see each other in 2021. If anybody's ever in the area out here in Ohio, look us up, come on by, open door policy, right? Just let me know you're coming and we'll pull the team together and we'll have some fun. Hopefully we can all cross blades and talk and have some fun at 2021 out in Vegas. So one last time, thank you to the CombatCon officers, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you to all the content creators and contributors for this week. If you were live, if you recorded, it was great stuff across the board. I learned so much and I hope all of you did too. Thank you guys all and gals all for producing that content and being a part of this amazing event. Thank you to my guys here who have been supporting me behind the scenes and getting coffee and everything else. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And with that, we're going to sign off. I'm Tom Amoroso, and this was the Virtual CombatCon Preview Week for 2020. Thank you all for joining, and I will see you all tomorrow night at opening ceremonies. Thanks.